Hello and welcome everyone. I welcome you all to this another lecture on the Palo Alto course, and this lecture is all about deploying a Palo Alto firewall in layer 2 mode. Now, in in the previous lectures we have seen how to deploy the Palo Alto in layer 3 mode, and now recently we saw the vWire mode. We had a lab that is the upper portion of this same topology. This one we did a lab for deploying into vWire, exactly right. And now we will do a lab of this one, which will show you how to deploy the L2 mode, right? So now you should understand that Palo Alto network firewalls are renowned for their capabilities in securing the network traffic, and understanding how to deploy them effectively is essential for anyone working in IT security. Now, as I said in a previous video, we primarily concentrated on layer 3 deployment and the vWire, but the layer 3 deployment interacts with routing protocols and IP address configurations. Now, in this lecture, we will pivot our focus to layer 2 mode, an important configuration that serves specific needs and scenarios. Now, understanding the layer 2 mode is crucial, and before we begin the setup process, let's explore what layer 2 deployments entail. We refer to layer 2 and when we are generally discussing operations that occur at the data link layer of the OSI model. And this layer is responsible for node to node data transfer and is crucial for defining how packets travel between devices on a local LAN, local area network, right? And we will see a key difference between the L2 versus the L3 deployment. Now, let's quickly go through this. I mean, you should obviously have guessed this, but let me just explain. The first thing is Palo Alto as a box. You cannot change the whole, what do you say, the mode, right? And this is a good example that you can use the same firewall, but the interfaces will be changing the modes. Right now you can have a tap interface here on the same firewall and also a layer 2 interface on the same firewall. If we will see this in the future lectures as well. Now the layer 3 interface basically can perform the routing, obviously, because it is on the layer 3 of the OSI layer, right? It can perform routing, it can perform NATing, and it can have the security policies based on IP, correct? So these things are, let's say, on a, what you say, a high level point of view. Now in contrast, what we have in layer 2 deployment, right? Layer 2 deployment, all right. Now it does have the switching capabilities, or you can say switching functionality. Switching functionality, and then obviously no routing support. There is no routing support. And then you can use the security policy here, but that will be purely zone based, all right. And also you can use the profiles. Okay, now this setup is ideal for organizations looking to manage internal traffic security, especially and primarily when there is no requirement for routing capabilities. Like you can see in this setup, let me just delete erase all of this. Now you can see in the setup below, the, in this portion, right, we have two devices that are part of the same VLAN and the same subnet. So L3, L2 same, right? But we have a firewall that basically controls the traffic that is shared between those two devices. If this was a switch, we do not have the capability of controlling this traffic. This is mostly called the east-west traffic, right? Different zones. East-west traffic is where you can control using the L2 mode. Now, as I said, now reasons to choose a layer 2 deployment would be simplified configuration, right? Here, since you don't need to worry about routing or interface IP addresses, the configuration becomes less complex. And as I said, this is great for internal segmentation. It's highly effective for organizations wanting to isolate different departments or functionalities while still allowing interaction between those segments. And also you have the improved security context, which means you can create stricter security policies or granular security policies that can control traffic flows between different zones, and which will be seamlessly without exposing internet networks or traffic to routing protocols. Okay, as I said, use cases for this layer 2 deployment would be internal traffic management. You can have data center security, and you can have virtualized environments. Like many for the virtualized environments, many organizations leverage this VM or the virtual machines that depend on layer 2 communication, and this model is vital when it comes to virtualized network, where multiple VMs share the same hardware resources but require isolation. Okay, so I too have to share with you the limitations of the Palo Alto firewall when deployed in layer 2 mode, and I have created this document for you guys, and I'll be sharing this in the resources so you can go and download this. Now, when you download a Palo Alto firewall in layer 2 mode, it operates as a switch, meaning it does not route traffic but can forward frames between interfaces in the same VLAN. However, there are several limitations. Obviously, the number one being no layer 3 routing. This firewall cannot perform routing between VLANs or subnet. For that, we need the SPIs, and for that, we have a different interface type, which is called the sub interface. We will see in the future lectures. But this also doesn't support the static or dynamic routing protocol. And as I said, no NATing, right? No NAT. Since the firewall operates at layer 2, it cannot modify the IP addresses. So that is no source NAT or destination NAT. Limited VLAN support. Now, VLAN interfaces must be explicitly configured for VLAN traffic forwarding. The firewall cannot act as a layer 3 gateway for VLAN. So for that, you need to have SPIs or a router on a stick kind of setup. And also no DHCP or PoE support. The firewall cannot act as a DHCP server or relay in layer 2 mode, but in layer 3 mode you can, and we have covered that in the course. And no PoE means point-to-point protocol over Ethernet. It's not supported. The MAC address learning and layer 2 forwarding, right? The firewall learns MAC addresses as it is performing as a switch. It forwards frames based on MAC address table rather than IP based policies. So that is exactly like a layer 2 switch. Regarding the redundancy and high availability, we do have some limitations. For example, supports the active passive HA, but active HA is not supported in layer 2 mode, exactly like the VWire mode. LACP, which is the link aggregation, is not supported here as well, same as the VWire mode. Now, there is one more thing, which is the asymmetric traffic handling challenges. If the firewall is deployed between multi-layer 2 paths, it may encounter asymmetric traffic flows, making session tracking difficult. So that is something you need to keep in mind. Now, differences between layer 2 mode and virtual wire mode. These two are quite similar. One of the differences could be that the VWire is supported with maximum 2 interfaces, right? If you see routing, they both don't support the routing. Layer 2 operations would be in layer 2 mode you have switching, but in VWire you don't have. We actually don't call as a switching mode. It's a transparent firewall, because the firewall does not participate in the in the BPDOs as well. If in vWire the firewall receives a BPDO, it will forward like that only, but in switching it will understand the BPDOs. And VLAN support, right, requires VLAN interfaces, but in the vWire passes VLAN tagging traffic, but VLAN tag traffic, but does not terminate VLANs. NAT are not supported in both the cases. MAC learning also is not supported in the vWire, but in layer 2 mode does learn the MAC dynamically. Security policies both are enforced using the security zones or zone based policies. HA same, only supports the active passive and not the active mode. QS are not supported in both the deployments, and application and threat inspection is fully supported in both the deployments. Now if you see in this, the key takeaways would be L2 mode behaves more like a switch and requires VLAN to be configured. PWire mode is purely transparent, does not learn MAC address, and allows stealth firewall deployments. Both modes support stateful inspection, threat prevention, and security policies, but neither supports NAT or routing. So this is something that you should keep in mind if somebody asks you what is the difference between layer 2 a vWire or layer 2 L3 vWire L3, all those stuff, right? So that would be all for this thing, and we will move to the configuration now. And I have my EVNG. Let me log in my EVNG and let me start my Palo Alto firewall. So I'll have this portion started, and I'll come back to the video. I will pause it, and once this everything is initialized, I'll continue the setup part. Alright, so the Palo Alto firewall has initialized, and I will do log in. So if I see like this, I have two interfaces which are each one /4 1/5, which are part of the vWire basically, right? You can see forwarding vWire. So we had already configured this, but in this case when we are deploying the L2, we will use the ETH1/2 and 1/3. all right, so I'll just keep it like that, and we will log into the PA, and I think it's on 1.201. I'm not wrong. We should be using the HTTPS. Yes, here it is. Proceed to the GUI. All right, I'll enter the credentials. Alright, so in this case what we will do is we will configure this interface and this interface as layer 2 interfaces, and we will configure the zones. We'll configure this as the you can say this one as, let me grab my pen. Alright, so we'll configure this as the LAN zone, and this one will be the server zone. Okay, so we need to configure two zones, and this should be type of layer 2. So these two zones should be layer 2 type, and then you also have to create a VLAN. In this case we will create VLAN 100, and then finally you have to go and configure the interfaces as layer 2 and attach it to the zone and the VLAN. These are the two things that you have to do here on the interface, right? So we'll go and create the zones, we'll create the VLAN, and then finally we'll attach these on the interface. All right, so let's go here, close. So now to create the zones, obviously you have to go to the, sorry, not the object, the network, and you'll go to zones, we already have two zones, inside outside. Let's keep it there only because this is used by the vwire. Now we'll create a LAN zone, LAN underscore zone. All right, and this should be type layer 2 and just save it. Similarly, we'll create another zone which will be a server zone, and type layer 2, simple. So this is one task. Then you have to create VLAN. Let's say this is our VLAN 100. All right, and this will be VLAN, sorry, none. Let me check. Okay, we'll keep none for now, and let's move on to the interface. And now this time we have the interface 1/2, 1/3. So 1/3 is going to be part of the LAN zone. So I'll go to 1/3 and I will configure this as the, let's say, LAN zone as a comment, and this is going to be L2, and the VLAN is going to be VLAN 100, and the security zone is going to be LAN zone, right? And you will see if I change this to layer 3, I will have the IP based settings enabled or features enabled, but when I change it to layer 2, you will see the IP is getting disappeared, the configuration. So anyways, we don't have to do anything apart from this. Okay, I have to keep it as part of the LAN zone and say okay, and then I will configure the 1/2, which will be part of the server zone. So I'll say server zone in the commit, and then I'll make this a layer 2 interface type. Then the VLAN is 100 and the security zone is going to be the server zone, and hit OK. So this is what I have to do, and on top of it I need a zone based policy which will basically control this traffic. But in my case, I mean, I will not do a granular policy. I will just make an open policy, but you can see that the policy will get hit counts. So let me just add another one, or let's do one thing. Let's not create the policy now, and we will test it first, so that we'll see that after creating the policy only the traffic is being allowed. Now till the time this is getting deployed, I'll go to my machines and change the IP. All right, this is my Windows client. I'll log into this, and also I have my server, which is this one. All right, I'll log into this one. Okay, so this is my server. All right, so first thing first, I'll go here and open the network sharing, change the settings, and this is basically my interface. So I'll go to properties and change the IPv4 and use the following IP, which is going to be 192.168.1.1, and the other side is going to be 1.2. So this is going to be 192.168.1.1 with /24 subnet. It's already there. I don't need the default gateway anyways. I don't need the DNS. I'm not going to connect to the internet, so I'll say okay. That is one thing. And if I go here and just check that IP, I have my IP configured. Now I'll go to the server and do the same thing. I should be able to cook. Anyways, I'll just hit run, or I can go to the control panel, and through that I can go to my network interfaces, network and sharing center, change it up to settings. I click on this one and properties, and let's something happen here. Okay, it's already there. And then I will change this to something else like 192.168. Sorry, 192. My num block is not there. Yeah, 192.168 1.2/24, and I don't need any what you say, the default gateway. All right, also I don't need the DNS. All right, hit OK. Fine. Okay, and when I go to my command prompt like this, right? So from here, if I ping 192.168, ping 192.168 1.2, this is not working. Also, let me try from here. If I ping 192.168.1.1, it's also not working. Now let me check one more thing, that my firewall is disabled already, so that my firewall is not blocking the ping. I just wanted to show you. I'll go to control panels here. I think I'm already having the control panel here. Yeah. The control panel, I should see the Windows firewall, and I will just disable this here. Just turn on. So let me just disable this for the time being, and that is done. So still my device, the client, is not able to ping the server. Okay, all right, let me go to the VM, the PAVM, and configure a policy. All right, so I'll go here, I'm just refreshing it because I was not able to see the add button highlighted or enabled. Okay, now it is there. So I'll just close this, and I'm going to add a policy. I'll say this is my layer 2 security policy, something like this. All right, and then I have, let's have universal default you can have, or you can have the interzone policy, because this is between two zones. You can tag this. Let's say this is my layer 2 tag. I don't have a tag, I think, so I need to create a tag, then I can tag it. Then source, you just define the source zones, which is my LAN zone, and then I will define the destination zone, which is going to be my server zone. Now you can also specify the source address, which is going to be, in my case, 192.168.1.1, and destination 192.168.1.2, but I don't want to do it. Let's just leave it as is. I can define the type of service I want to enable, all of that, right? So just for testing, I'll just enable this, and then I will commit. Great. Now I'll go back to my system here, and let's see the traffic enabled once the rule is committed on the PM. So all right, you can see that now the traffic is being allowed because the PA rule was configured and it's being committed already, so that is why the traffic is now allowed. So that is how you deploy the interfaces into a layer 2 mode, and you can see we already have the vwire interface side by side configured, and now we can also configure the tap interface. Now you can also see the hits on the policy here. It will increase if I refresh this, obviously, because more and more traffic will be hitting the same rule. And also I can go to the monitor and see that the particular traffic that is being passed through these zones getting shown in the, I feel like there is something going in the background with this VM, something wrong, because the GUI is not working, so that's why the traffic is getting dropped. But now it's, see, now you can see 70, and then the hit count increased, and you can go to monitor and you can also see the traffic going from the LAN zone to the server zone, and you can see the source and the destination IP and the application type, right? Ping. And also you can see the layer 2 security policy name that we have configured. And you can also see this in the session browser, where you can see the flow one from the client to the server and then server to the client. So I hope you learned something new today in this lecture, and I thank you for watching this lecture, and I will see you in the next lecture. Till then, bye bye.